Hello, everyone, and welcome to LeeLa. I'm PHILBROOK. The intention of the LeeLa community is to transform practices and conversations into actions that make a difference. LeeLa comes from Sanskrit, and it means divine or creative play. It literally translates to your story, and we love to tell others' stories. It's going to be an amazing show this evening. We're super excited. We're going to kick it off with a background on us, your hosts, followed by an opening intention. And then we have our special guest, Tammy Cunningham, who truly is an inspiration. We will engage Tammy in a conversation on facing adversity and her reframe of what she calls the big C. We'll then do our closing intention and final announcements. And a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. We love if you put your cameras on, so please feel free to turn them on, unless of course you're eating or moving around the house. And we love questions, so feel free to put your questions in the chat box or raise your virtual hand. So without further ado, here we go. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Lisa English. Lisa?
Welcome to LeeLa, everyone. This is a safe space where you can all explore, learn, and most importantly, have fun. It's also a place where we hope to inspire you all to live a congruent and intentional life. I'm a teacher, entrepreneur, and content creator for small businesses, and I'm so excited to share Tammy's story with you all tonight. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it back over to my co-host, PHILBROOK. Lee?
I'm a mindset coach, and I'm absolutely passionate about making a difference in people's lives. I use my skills working with the unconscious mind to empower individuals in career changes. Here's what I do. I assist people to break through in what's holding them back in life, discover their authentic voice and work they love, and most importantly, enrich the relationships with themselves and other people. I'd now like to do our opening intention that really connects us and holds the space for this evening. So please close your eyes. May divine grace surround us, uphold us, and cherish us all. May it support us and our sacred trust and community. May we be strong together and our journeys be brighter and higher for having walked side by side. May we be guides for others and ourselves with clarity, tenderness, and light, feeling gentle in our minds and clear with our words, being strong in our creations, sending peace in all directions of time. With gratitude, we take this moment to arrive and join together. Open your eyes. Welcome to the room. And now over to Lisa to introduce our special guest. Lisa?
Tammy Cunningham has been a force in the human potential movement since the early 90s. Along with the mastery of self-expression, she has studied many systems of self-empowerment. She has created and led many courses, such as active meditation, mantra of movement, facilitation skills for leaders, and many other workshops of her design. Tammy has a natural ability to help others through her deep understanding of dynamics and movement. Tammy is a trained mastery facilitator and has conducted courses of her own design since 1996. Tammy's current programs are bringing out the best in coaches, facilitators, and other workshop leaders. She has dedicated herself to training leaders and facilitators in her unique style, affectionately named by her students the Cunningham Method. It is now my pleasure to welcome our special guest of the evening, Tammy Cunningham. Welcome, Tammy.
Hello, hello. It's so beautiful to see you. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome, Tammy. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. You have such a beautiful story of both kind of vulnerability and surrender and trust. And I'd love to just dive right in. Can you tell us how your story begins? Tell us about getting your diagnosis.
Well, I was experiencing things that seemed like they might be the act of aging. And I was attributing them to like, oh, this is menopause. This is perimenopause. And it all made perfect sense. And then I was doing a beautiful chakra course with this lovely woman, and I was talking about it with her. And I said, how can I raise my energy while I go through perimenopause? And she said, well, why don't you go and just check out with the doctor? Because it sounds like you have a lot of fatigue. And so I just went to the doctor thinking that maybe I had low blood iron or something. Like, that's why I went to the doctor. I have in the past been doctor resistant. So that's how I came to be diagnosed. Originally, she said, let's just send you for an ultrasound, see what's going on in your uterus. And then and then the journey began. So it was completely unexpected.
Wow, that's well, and let's jump into, why did you reframe what's this diagnosis, or maybe tell us a little bit more about the diagnosis and that you decided to reframe it and call it the big C.
Yes. Well, I've certainly heard other people call it the big C. So I really like that. I didn't want to walk around saying cancer, cancer, cancer. And I didn't want to say my cancer. I didn't want it. I
Mm.
I didn't want to hold on to it. So I wanted it to go. So I just decided to reframe certain things in certain ways. And just to be clear about the diagnosis story as well, originally I was misdiagnosed and I was told that it was a cyst,
Okay.
and that I should go home and it would pop at home, and I would take a couple of days off and I would be fine.
Okay.
And that sounded really scary to me, actually. And that's when I had a cry. So I
Okay.
was like, by myself, I'm going to be by myself. And I have this lovely group of women that we meet every month. I call them my goddesses. It's our goddess group.
Beautiful.
And so I said, oh my gosh, it's in my little ovary, my poor little ovary. And I feel like I should talk to her and help her. And since we thought it was a cyst, we named it Cindy the Cyst.
Okay.
And so then I was just like, okay, I'm gonna now I have to go through the process, figure out how to pop the cyst. And then I got a call from my regular doctor to say, can you come in because we have some thoughts here. So that's when I was informed, like my blood test revealed antigens, cancer antigens.
Okay.
And the thing is that um, I didn't want to be. I know a lot of people, it really works for them to fight, fight, fight. But I didn't want to be in a fight with my body.
Mm.
I wanted to love my body and um, nurture it and take care of it in any way that I could. So the first thing was to name Cindy. My gynecologist named my uterus George. So Cindy and George, and she called them the evil twins.
There's a George on the call, so he did a that for because George is giving you lots of love.
Thank you, George. So yeah, so then I just thought, I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to say, hey, thank you for whatever burden you're taking from me. Like if this manifested because of something I didn't deal with, sorry about that. And then when I found out I was absolutely going to have surgery and everything, I started to ask Cindy and George, hey, can you take some stuff with you? You know, like any little traumas that are still stuck with me, can you take that with you? That would be so helpful for me. And so that's what I did. And I reframed other things as well. So when I was going to chemo, instead of calling it chemo, because there was, oh my God, I got to chemo, and it's called chemo daycare when you go to chemotherapy. And so I called it my spa day.
Beautiful.
And so then I would go to the hospital and I was like, I'm here for my spa day. And they were like, oh, that's interesting. So one of the things that the very first time I met the oncologist, she said, you're going to be fine. You're because of your attitude, everything is going to be great. Like you're going to have really good results. So that was helpful. Yeah. So I just started reframing each thing, reframing.
Each
Like
step as you went
instead of
along.
chemo drugs, it was golden therapy, golden juice therapy. And, you know, instead of chemo day, it's spa day. I started to look forward to losing my hair because I heard that chemo hair comes in curly. Look how curly it is.
know, you're
And I was like,
beautiful
oh my
curly
God, I
hair.
could have curly hair. I've always wanted curly hair. So, uh, yeah, so a friend said, aren't you worried about losing your hair? And I'm like, I'll be disappointed if it doesn't go. I want a fresh start. I often thought about shaving my head. So, yeah,
Wow.
just started reframing, and especially reframing, I don't want to fight it. So,
Mm.
yeah.
And tell me, chemo hair, you were talking about that just a little bit earlier. What is, people may not know what chemo hair is.
Oh, okay. So what happens is that, you know, the chemotherapy kills off all fast growing cells. And so, so some of those cells are related to your follicles. And so the follicles will just release your hair. So I lost all my hair. I lost most of my eyebrows. I had like a few here, and I had a little bit of a zigzag, and and I lost my eyelashes and every body hair.
Okay.
And so what chemo hair is when your hair starts to come back. So the hair that's coming back is totally different than the hair that I had before. It's thicker, it's coarser, and it's curly. So yeah, and this apparently will last for about a year because it takes a while for chemotherapy
To
medicines
actually
to come out of
work
it.
through.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell us, how has reframing all these pieces for you, made a difference, and maybe even from other people that had either similar diagnoses or you watched going through the process? Did you notice how there might, how you did it was different to how they did it, and how that um, affected you and them, I guess?
Yes, I think that um, I felt quite cheerful most of the year. There was a couple, obviously there was periods where you know anybody could get grumpy about things, but I did feel quite cheerful. And in fact, last year going through the big C was one of the best years of my adult life in many ways, because it really revealed so much to me. I learned so much. I spent most of the year with my sister, and we just hunkered down in sisterly love. And yeah, there was, oh my God, so many emotional, spiritual gifts all along the way.
Beautiful. Well, we'll dive into some of those after. Can you talk about how your experience before your uh, how your experience before your diagnosis prepared you for the journey?
For sure. Yes. Well, as you were mentioning in when you're introducing me, I actually am a trained facilitator, and so I've done a lot of personal growth work. So I was more, I just believe I was more emotionally prepared. So that was a huge thing for me. I really believe, like a lot of people think, when I get there, I'll say the thing, I'll do the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I get to the hard experience, I'll just wing it. And I actually think you have to train for those events.
Mm.
Have to really train. And how you train is you be vulnerable in your heart and you share with people, and and you stand up for yourself, like a heightened sense of intimacy and vulnerability in your life will prepare you for adversity. So it's like, start practicing now. Just start practicing now, whatever it takes. The thing you didn't say, find a relationship way to build, relationship building way to say it.
Mm.
And the thing that I'm going to let it slide, I'm going to let it slide. A lot of people do that. They let things slide in their relationships until then all of a sudden it bubbles up, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know that. I've been doing that for 2 years. I didn't know that ticked you off. Right. So, so say the thing in the moment, tell the truth sooner. So all of those things I learned along my own journey and have been training other people. So in that way I was trained. And then the other thing was, I have a really lovely friend who had a congenital heart defect. And when she was 38, she was at a conference and she died. And fortunately, she was running, and running right behind her was a cardiac nurse. So
Wow.
they kept her heart going, and behind her was a medic, an army medic who had been retired. So they kept her heart going, and then so she's alive today. She's alive and well. We call her Dead Cheryl, and and she's great. And one of the things that she talked about was that when she died, she did go to a place and she did feel beauty. And so for me, just when I thought, oh, this might be it, I might be checking out. I thought, oh, well, it doesn't seem like it's going to be so bad. It's actually going to be a beautiful journey to pass, not necessarily to the act of dying, which is something that, I almost died several times through chemotherapy and all of that kind of thing. And that did not feel good. But it does seem like what we're hearing, what I heard from Cheryl, what I've heard from other people and in my research is that there is a lovely place that we go to. And so, okay, I'll go there. It won't be so bad. Yeah.
Beautiful. And can you describe your experience about sharing with others and what you were going through? Because I know that was a challenge for you to begin with, to actually share that journey.
Yes. Well, I really noticed that people as a group can manifest together. So I kept it quiet because I didn't want people to manifest the worst for me. So I held it really tight. I held it to my chest. I told my mom and my sister, and actually for a little while regretted it because they were so upset.
Mm.
And they were somewhat upset that I wasn't upset. I was like, I just have a little touch of cancer. It's no big deal. And, and I made jokes about haunting my sister if she kept pestering me about stuff like that. And so my gallows humor was not refreshing for them at all. But anyway, so yeah, I just noticed that people can manifest as a group. And for example, my sister always believed that if you get cancer, that's it. You're going to die. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. And so I had to sort of convince her of that. So I held it close to my chest until and then I invited people in and I had conversations individually. And then, and I actually kept my family out of it. I just had my goddess group and my mom and my sister and a very close friend in LA. And that was it. Those were the people that knew for several months, actually. Yeah.
And were you able to bring your sister and your mom on board from that place of being really scared to where you were with it?
Yes, for sure. Uh, and in fact, at one point, my sister had the doctor had discovered a lump in her breast, and she thought, "Oh my God, I can't believe it! Like, am I going to be going through this?" She was totally freaked out, totally opposite of me. And her best friend sent her a little image of like a gif of a little girl in a tutu doing a little jump, and it said, You just have to Tammy it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, fortunately, it wasn't, it was nothing. It was just a lumpy boob. That happens sometimes.
Sometimes that happens.
Little lumpy boobs. So, yeah, so they more and more came on board, and my sister stayed with me. My mother was with me until the surgery, and then my sister stayed with me after the surgery. So I was with her for um, parts of the first part of the year, and then basically until January. Yeah.
Wonderful. And we have a couple questions in the chat, and we've actually got Brown here. So Brown I met when I was in Malawi in Zambia a couple of years ago. And he's asked, what advice can you give to my youth club and Malawian ladies who are scared to go for cancer testing? I'm asking this because of the 100 people, it is only 3 people that go for cancer diagnosis.
Yes. Well, that's a great question, Brown. And so I hope you will use me as an example, because if I had gone when the first little red flags had occurred, it probably would have been cryosurgery.
And
Like it would have just been, oh, here's some precancerous cells, let's get rid of it. You know what I mean? Because when I look back, all the little flags were there, but I was easy to justify. So in the end, what it ended up being was a total hysterectomy.
okay.
So and it was like a big deal. So the longer you wait on a cancer diagnosis, the more opportunity that little bugger has a chance to grow and become more complicated. So that's the reason to go as quickly as possible, for sure. And then the other thing is, it's usually nothing. Like my sister went and she just, she just has a lumpy boob, and that was it.
Right. But then you have the peace of mind.
Yeah.
And probably part of that, and the mindset of worrying, like, what if could actually take something that could be just a lumpy boob, and all of a sudden I think we can manifest these things within our body when we start to worry, right?
And in fact, there is proof of that the trauma in our brain and the trauma that we recreate by constantly thinking the same thoughts over and over again, which we do. 80% of what we think today, we thought yesterday and the day before and the day before that. And probably if you had a journal and you look back, you'd be like, I've been thinking this terrible thought for 15 years or 18 years or however long.
Yes.
So, but they've proven that affects your epigenetics, and our epigenetics is everything. That's how our genes communicate how we want to be. So what you want to do is have a mindset of positivity and clear any of those, we all have those little things that pop up in our mind, that mind talk, the committee of judges that lives in our subconscious that just produces really negative thoughts all the time. Right. And so it's really important actually to keep clearing that and get to a really positive mindset. And because our positive thoughts literally create the protein that's needed to recreate our genetic code and our genetic cells properly.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, as truly probably one of the most important things for anyone going through something, whether it be a difficult situation in your life or a diagnosis like this, is to, if we think the negative thoughts and keep doing that, we're going to, go in that direction. And where do we want to be? So focusing on what you want as opposed to what you don't want.
Absolutely. And for Brown, if you're working with people in your community, I would recommend that you start practicing with those people to have positive thoughts so that they're in the practice of it. You can't get good at things unless you practice. And so, like, whatever that means for you, if that's like group meditations or getting people together for singing, or I don't know how your community works, but to find some way for you to bring that positivity and get people trained along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it really is, yeah, stopping and noticing too, to reframe. It's like, oh, I'm thinking that negative thought again. Okay, let's clear that screen. And what's a positive thought, right? So it is reframing the situation and choosing something positive. So it's that beginning of noticing. So
Yes.
wonderful. And we had a question here from George, and he asked, what was the most difficult part of your process?
I think the most difficult part of the process for me was seeing my family and loved ones really torn up and worried. That
Mm,
was really the most difficult part. It was like, that hurt my spirit a lot. Yeah. And even now, like, it makes me cry to
mhm.
think how scared my mom was. And she was terrified. I think my dad's on this call right now, actually. He
Hey,
was
Dad.
scared, and people were scared. They
Yeah,
were really scared. So yeah. So that was definitely the hardest part.
yeah. Well, and this is the next question is really the flip side, but what has been the most positive, or why has this been the most positive experience of your life?
Um, the outpouring of love was incredible. I had no idea. I had no idea. I thought, oh yeah, I have people who like me. I get invited to parties, but but I was absolutely stunned by the caring and the love. People sent me gifts, and sent me meals, and and here we were going through COVID, so people sent me Uber Eats and DoorDash uh gift cards, and I was really and people sent me jewelry. So it was unbelievable. And people keep still doing that. Like this today, I received from my beautiful neighbor Alice, who just was like, I just felt like giving it to you. Wow. So people, I really felt seen. And I think that that's
Mm,
something that's so important for every person,
mm,
to be seen and to feel like you belong to a community or a group.
mm,
And that was really illustrated to me, so that sometimes in my dark times, like when I'm jaded, I'll be like, nobody even really cares about me. Nobody cares. Well, I've been disabused of that notion for all times, just by the outpouring of love that I received. I could never have known. I could never have known. And so in so many ways, how lucky was I to have cancer, and then and have people care for me in such, like, in all the different ways that they cared.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. Again, such a wonderful reframe. And I think, doing the work I do, I think for most of us that, am I loved, right? Am I worthy? And, am I lovable? Am I loved? Is that deep down the core piece for that we question. And yeah, what a gift to be able to go through this experience and truly know on this core level and get who you are for them, right, is such a beautiful experience. My next question is why did you talked about in an interview I listened to before that you started to plan for your death when you were first diagnosed. Why did you end up? Why was that important for you?
I didn't want to leave a mess behind for people to clean up, and I was prepared. I was prepared to die. I wasn't afraid to die. I'm still not afraid to die. um, and had the prognosis been different, honestly, I would have taken advantage of the program that we have in Canada. We're so lucky to have in Canada to choose to have an assisted suicide.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that I have been at the bedside of relatives and watched them rattle to death. And I did not want to be that person. And I didn't want to be that burden on people. And then also I wanted to make sure like all my little knickknacks and trinkets go to, this is going to go to this niece, and this, my nephew's going to get this. And, I wanted to make sure that that was all settled and handled. Um, yeah, so it felt like a really beautiful opportunity to go through that sort of thinking and process.
And I'm going to ask, there's a couple questions here. I'm going to look over here because my screen, I can't see them there. Um, this is from Jill. When you were in your toughest moments, can you describe some or one of the best ways your friends or family supported you in their words or messages that help you feel positive?
Well, something that I did was when I decided to share, I shared with my inner circle and first. And so I would just go and I would just like, oh, I feel I want to share. And then I would go and I would just type out a musing of what I was thinking about into Facebook. And then I would get all of these beautiful messages. And even if it was just a heart, I felt it. And then I would go through and, like the people like and love and send out, the little hugging guy and everything.
The care.
So I would go through it and I would just look at the list and I would be like, oh my gosh, look at that. Okay. Rhonda and like all these people would, be in the list. And sometimes it'd be like, oh my gosh, look at that. That's Graham from high school. So it was people from all different parts of my life. And wow, that was really powerful for me. It felt like a powerful healing to receive that, And I also made some rules, by the way, because something that did also happen was that people were, I had a person say to me, "Stop all your treatments, cancel your surgery. I'm going to heal you." And I was like, "That's not my process, and that's not, like that's not the stage. I couldn't be at that stage right now." So um people would, so I made a rule to say,
Okay.
listen, I've already done research. I don't want this to be about talking about vitamin C. Because I heard a lot about vitamin C. And vitamin C is great, but I don't need to hear about it every day. So I just made some guidelines for myself and set up some really
Okay.
beautiful boundaries. And then I would host these host on Facebook. I would say, okay, tell me everything. Tell me what you've got. And then people go, oh, this therapy, that, and so it gave people an opportunity. And I did learn some stuff. Oh, and also I have a good friend, Rhonda, who just bought me a program. She said, what do you think of this program? And it was like an eating, meditation, diet kind of program. And so, yeah, people were so kind. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Oh, no, that's wonderful. I have so Finley B says to you, it's great to see you, Tammy. You look amazing. Your story is beautiful. It's quite amazing to hear you talk about your journey in this way. We often hear about it as being, we often hear about it as being so dark and scary, which no doubt it can be. Do you feel like you had a, a dark night of the soul?
Yes, I definitely had certainly several
Oh,
of.
and it's Nicole. Sorry, because so that's Nicole Burgo. Hello,
Oh,
Nicole.
Nicole
And so that's Finley.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Um, yeah, I definitely had several dark nights of the soul for sure. Um, Certainly, like something that happens with chemo is it really strips your cells, and that can be irritating. So I had grumpy times, and I would also have times where like I was thinking, I might not make it through. And I think, certainly just before my surgery, because I had to have chemo first and then surgery, because I had what is it called? A pulmonary embolism, like a
Oh,
blood
wow.
clot in my lung, which is
Okay.
very common. Like these are all things
Okay.
that just happen for people.
Okay. But you don't know about it because you've never done it before.
I didn't know about it. I had no, yeah. So it's just something that came up. So, those kinds of things, um, there was moments of worry around that stuff for sure. Uh, but I definitely had some grumpy moments in my, like, I remember my sister saying, wow, I wonder what your clients would say about the communication expert right now, I was like, I'm grouchy. I just grouchy. Yeah. So
Um, and to kind of tag on to that question, when did you feel closest to dying? Because I know you mentioned there were a couple points along the way.
oh yes, well, um I think, and in fact, actually, I nearly died 2 times. um the first and the second chemotherapy, I had a massive allergic reaction and I went into anaphylactic shock. um and they came in with crash carts and cardio blah blahs and all the medical tools, and they had to inject me with uh, massive amounts of Benadryl and steroids. And that was scary because I was like, I'm not afraid to die. No, I'm good. I know where I'm going. It's going to be nice there. It's going to be a vacation. It's all good. And then to actually feel the feeling, of, my spinal fluid, like I'm feeling my aorta. Like normally we don't get to feel our aorta unless we are having a heart attack, which is basically what it felt like. So that was really scary, really eye-opening. And then it happened a second time, on the second chemo. So they just switched my drugs after that. Yes.
Okay. And is this something they warn you that may happen, or it's just
Oh yes, yeah. They know
okay?
that it's going to happen. And when I was at spa days,
Right.
I could hear people, like they would go, code blue, blah blah blah, this location, that location, and I was like, wow, that's interesting, and then I realized, oh, I'm a code blue sometimes. you know
Wow.
I was code blue. So those were 2 major times that I came very close to dying. And then just before my surgery, the I had something that was very rare. I had tumor fevers. So they kept thinking I had an infection, but actually it was just that the tumors were um, they were so hot that I could put my hand on my abdomen and feel like it was cool here and then it was hot over here. So that was scary. It was very weak, and that was close to death. The night before I went in for surgery, my sister and I stayed at the Soho Hotel, so we were really close. And then we were also in the lap of luxury. And then we ordered in some food and stuff. And my sister, she did not sleep at all because she was so scared by my condition that I was going to die in the night before I got my surgery. So that's those were really the times that felt like it was really close.
Thank you for sharing that. And did you feel after having the surgery, did you feel, because I've talked to a friend who's gone through a process like this, and she felt so much better after the surgery. It was almost like that toxic piece was gone. And now she could, even though there's still a process ahead, it was like at least the body was like, okay.
Yes. Well, when I woke up in recovery, I felt better. Like
Okay.
literally, I had been opened up and everything, and I actually felt better than when I went to the hospital. The way your friend described it is perfect. It's like the toxicity left, everything was gone. Um, and like it was, they weighed me obviously in the morning of the surgery, and then about 2 days later, they weighed me again, and I weighed 25 pounds less. And that was like
Holy smoke.
fluid and all that stuff. So, and apparently that's quite common for a hysterectomy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I assume there's fluid that's built up because of the infection as well.
Yeah. And it's just acidic. It was just an acidic environment in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
felt so much better.
Yeah.
Oh
She
my
said she
gosh.
felt better than she felt in years after the process, which, it seems amazing right after surgery for someone to say that. But um, when something is obviously no longer, I guess, welcome in your body, yeah, it was time
Yes.
for it to.
Yes. Something that was really lovely was that when I was in recovery, the nurse said, like the nurses and the doctors know who you are, right? But you're just there unconscious having surgery. And so she couldn't wait for me to wake up so we could chit chat. And she told me all about, how everybody was talking to Cindy and George uh
That's
like it was
awesome.
very sweet how they talked about it. And then the oncology fellows, they're called fellows, but they're all women actually. They're gynecologists training to be oncology surgeons. And they came in and they also talked about how they talked to Cindy and George, uh and they had, like, I had talked about, I'm thanking them, they're taking, they were like, thanks for your service, Cindy and George. And so they participated totally. So I
Wow.
felt um like I was so supported. Even in the surgery, I was so supported in every aspect, and I was surrounded by such positivity.
Well, and you created that. That's what's so beautiful is to see that because you created this narrative around it, that they all played with that. Because if you'd been really serious and clenched, then that wouldn't have been that kind of experience, that they would have shared that with you and kind of, had this story. So that's so amazing. Wow. Um, I'm going to ask you, what have you learned about fear and acceptance and trusting the process through this?
um Well, in terms of fear, I learned a lot about other people's fear because for the most part, I wasn't afraid through the whole thing. Whereas in the past, I definitely would have been afraid. Like I think when I was a bit younger, I was quite terrified of death. And but the the thing that I really learned for myself was that everything is a process. Our bodies are a process. Like we're always in process. So like, and the way our cells develop, our genetics, our how our blood goes through our body, and then gets cleaned up in our heart, and our how our lungs operate, and everything's a process. And so when I got the diagnosis, I just decided, okay, I'm in a process. And what does that process look like? So I definitely wanted to do the Western stuff. And I also wanted to do, woo woo stuff, for lack of a better word. But so I just followed the process. And sometimes I didn't know what the next step in the process was. But what I realized is if I don't push, if I just surrender, then the next step is revealed.
Mm,
Naturally, gently, comfortably revealed. Yes.
in being present to what's showing up at that time, and then you're able to go, okay, what do I choose now, as opposed to being in the reaction of, whoa, this is a lot.
Yes.
And thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Lisa now, and she's going to continue asking you questions. And I think there's a few other ones in the chat, Lisa.
Great.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. It's been such a wonderful evening so far of sharing. So, before I get to the question, I just wanted to let you know that Brown said, I am out of words. Your story will inspire many young ladies in my community in Malawi, which is in Africa. So,
Awesome.
something quite nice. And Melissa was asking, what is Spa Day and how did that come about?
Okay, well, so spa day is what I called the chemotherapy days. So those are the days that people go in and they, and the hospital calls it daycare, chemo daycare. And so instead, I thought it's a spa day. Like how nice is it to go to the spa and people attend you and you get what you need, and you get healthier. And so that's how I decided to call spa days.
And I remember you saying in another interview that you had love pouring through your veins when
Yes,
when you went for your spa days.
exactly, exactly. And in fact, my friend Cheryl, what she would do is in the morning before the spa day, so it would be like 6:45 in the morning. She would call and then she would walk me through a meditation. And the meditation was like, okay, body, this is what's going to be coming. This is what's going to happen at spa day. You're going to receive this. And these are the cells that need to react to it. And then she talked to my genetic code and she said, hey, genetic code, this is what we need to turn on for healing and all this stuff. Um, so we did that before every chemo. We did that before and after the surgery. So that was really powerful as well.
Words are very powerful, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, Tammy, how did this whole process make you feel vulnerable?
Um, I think it brought me to a new level of vulnerability. It was, and I'm a pretty open person. I'm like, my hugs are more cuddles than anything, but um, yeah, it brought me to a new level of vulnerability. It let me open my heart and um, and it sort of created this container of love around me by sharing. So it felt really good. So that was the vulnerability piece. Some of the vulnerability pieces that were so hard were just telling my family and my friends and my loved ones. So I called friends because I lived in Vancouver for a long time. I didn't want to make a public announcement until the people that I loved knew. I didn't want them to have a shock, just like, I think I'll check out Facebook. Oh, there's something going on with Tammy. So um, that vulnerability was hard. And one of the hardest calls that I had to make was to let my uncle know. And my uncle is like, my mother's the oldest and my uncle's the youngest. And so we were raised more like brother and sister. He's less than 4 years older than me. And so I had to tell him, and it was really difficult to tell him. And he was stoic and concerned and yeah, so we
Mm-hmm.
still haven't told his kids. They just think I should shave my head because they're too little. So,
Right,
yeah.
right. And going on with that, I wanted to read this because I think it's quite amazing. So I was reading today about an author, a children's book author, and he said, "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" And he's talking about a horse, and the horse says, "Ask for help." So, what have you learned about asking for help, Tammy?
Well, it is not my strong suit to ask for help. That's for sure. And so um, this has been huge for me to ask for help with people. And it's so vulnerable to need help.
Mm.
It's really vulnerable to need help and to not be able to do things. After the surgery, like I couldn't get in and out of bed without help. So, my baby sister came and lived with me and she had to come and like I would text her and I would say, "Can you help me get out of bed?" I couldn't have like I had to be helped in the shower for a period of time. So that kind of vulnerability was new for me.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people in the world, they have to surrender to that kind of help, and I I'm really grateful that I got the opportunity to surrender to that help.
Mhm. Yeah, it's almost a sign of weakness in our society, and really, we should reframe it as it's a sign of bravery to ask for help.
I agree because it felt brave to be like, accepting. And normally I wouldn't be a person who's like, okay, yeah, make me food and send me stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
I normally would be like, no, 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 don't worry about me. I'm fine.
Mhm.
But I had to admit I wasn't fine. I needed some help. So
Yeah, and that's okay. And that's okay. So Tammy, what changes have you seen in your life as a result of all of this? I'm sure there's plenty.
there's, um, before the diagnosis, there were things that I was tolerating. And as soon as I as soon as I started chemo, everything in my body became different because it became so sensitized. Like I couldn't drink a kombucha. I took a sip of kombucha after my first chemo and I literally was on the floor. I did this, like, it burned me all the way down. And so in that way, I became sensitized, not just in my body, but in my life. And so now I feel like I just can't tolerate, for lack of a better word, bullshit anymore. But I also have a lot of love and support for people who are still in their bullshit.
Mhm.
But for me, it was just like, no, that's a lie. I can't do it.
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to defend myself anymore for anything. I want to be undefended. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, if I screwed up, I screwed up.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
You want to be authentically you,
exactly.
and that's who you're definitely coming across as.
Thank you.
Sharing your story proves that. So thank you. Um, what are your most meaningful learnings from this journey?
Well, um, that's such a good question. And I realized that, I'm loved more than I could have known. And that was a big revelation. I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. And I already knew that being intimate and being vulnerable is the strongest you can be. But I got to experience it firsthand in a big way. So that was powerful. That was really powerful. Um, and the other thing is, and this speaks to what Brown was asking about earlier, is uh, if there's a little niggling something, to get it addressed. Because literally the type of cancer that I had was a slow growing cancer. So it didn't need to get to that place.
Mhm.
Right. So just like, tell the truth faster, face the thing sooner.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And what impact have you seen by sharing this story and all these learnings with other people?
What was really interesting was all of a sudden there was a rash of people on my Facebook feed that were telling their story. And I sent a message to a friend because she had posted about what had been going on for her health wise. And
Mhm.
she said, I haven't mentioned this to you. And she did like a post outing herself on her health condition. And so I sent her a private message and she said, actually, Tammy, I did that because you did it. You gave me the strength and I saw how people supported you. And I thought, I can have that too. And then other people also follow the lead, like, yeah, I can say what's going on, because it's like we feel like we have to hide these things, especially health stuff. So yeah, I think that was a big impact on people. And
Mhm.
I was so touched by that.
Of
Yeah.
course. If you can be brave, I can be brave too. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Dale has asked a question in the chat. So, if you were faced with the same situation, what would you do differently?
um I think that, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have spent those few months keeping it a guarded secret. Yeah, I would have told the truth faster. Yes. I mean, certainly if you could rewind further back, I just would have gone to the doctor a lot sooner as well. So rather than assuming, I had been to the doctor, but that, they didn't do a biopsy. So that's not what we expected it to be. So, um, yeah, I think that that's the main thing. And then I also would have captured it more clearly because I wish I'd journaled all the way through, but I sort of just journaled on Facebook and to my goddess group and, messages with all my beautiful friends. And that's what I did. So I wish I'd captured my day to day, because also the thing about chemotherapy is it does affect, it puts a fog on your brain. And so the fog is still lifting, but literally I don't remember Christmas Day. I don't remember having my last birthday because it just got fogged out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why were you wanting to keep track, but yeah, maybe for a book down the road too, it will come
Yeah,
back to you slowly.
exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm doing now. We're preparing some notes to write a book. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Wonderful. We'll maybe get to that a little bit later. George has just asked, when my mother passed from cancer, she told me to pay attention, George, pay attention. Is that true for you?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to pay attention, because I don't know what, George, I don't know what your mom meant by it. And sorry to hear of the passing of your mom. But what I take from that is like, pay attention to the little moments. Don't miss the beauty in life. For me, one of the things, I'm probably going to cry to tell you this, but like my niece gave birth to a little baby last year whilst I was going through this. And one of the sorrows for me was like, she won't know how much I love her. And so I was so glad that when we did open up, I got to see her. I have tons of pictures with her. Like, I wanted to make sure that um, she and her older brother had photos with me and knew that I adore them in case I go. It's, so,
Mm-hmm.
so to really savor those beautiful moments.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And George just said she had early symptoms and she didn't pay attention to the symptoms. So, okay, Tammy, what advice can you give to others who are facing adversity and going through a difficult diagnosis? I know you've mentioned a lot already, but maybe is there one or two big things that you could really offer here?
Um, I would say definitely treat it like a process, and, you know, understand that it's like step by step, be gentle with yourself and accept as much help as is offered. Yeah.
Mhm.
And one other thing is to uh, guard your energy as well. In terms of, if there's somebody in your life who's like pushing you, I had people in my life who were really pushing me to change how I was doing things, and or who were really being negative towards me, and I just took a vacation from them. Not necessarily cut them out of my life, but pardon me, take a vacation from negativity. Yeah.
Mhm. I think there's something to be said as well in that, just some great everyday life advice in life, right?
Yeah.
Not even just for people who are going through a difficult time. It's just, why don't we do that every day, even if you're in a good spot? So I love that, Tammy. Thank you. And I love this little quote. So Mark Twain said, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. I think you might have heard that quote before, Tammy. So can you tell us, what's your purpose? What is your why?
Um, I have an interesting perspective on purpose, and I think that people get confused with career goals and purpose, and sometimes people's purpose is not in alignment with necessarily what they're doing. I think my purpose is fortunately in alignment with what I'm doing. And that is that I am helping people communicate more clearly, get clarity, have relationship building conversations and positive relationships, especially with themselves.
Mm, mm,
Yes. But in terms of like other people's purpose, like, listen, if your purpose in life is to skate, you don't have to be an Olympic skater. But if that's the purpose, is to feel the wind and to have the joy and let people around you experience you in your full joy, that's great. I just think we need to be experiencing each other fully.
mm. I love that. I love that. And maybe can you talk about now the book that you're writing? Like, what else is next for you? Are you going to be on some more shows and podcasts? And yeah, talk about your book as well, please.
Yeah, so I'm working on a book. I'm still trying to decide. One of the titles is A Different Kind of Journey. But we were also playfully working with Not Dead Yet. That was kind of funny. But yeah, so we're working on a book, and based on all of the things that I posted and wrote, and then to flesh that out a bit. And I'm finally coming back to work. I'm about 2/3 back to work. So I did work through the entire process, um, but not as much. And obviously, with COVID, my workshop business shut down because there wasn't any workshops. Um, but I still kept some one-on-one clients and that sort of thing.
Mm.
And I was also doing I had a contract with an organization to run their trainings. So now what I'm doing is I'm getting back to business, like back to the business of training people. I have some workshops coming up in June, as we were talking about, and
Mm.
I'm planning a big launch in September as well. So
Awesome. Yeah, we will let everyone know in our announcements about your workshops and in our highlights emails. So
thank you.
very exciting. And we'll definitely keep our eyes out for you on some other podcasts and shows as well. Yes, I
Absolutely.
know that's probably in your story as well. So thank you, Tammy, for being so honest and open about your story. We can all certainly take a piece from tonight. So it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm now going to pass it over to Lee for our closing intentions. So, Lee?
Again, Tammy, thank you so much for your vulnerability and um, authenticity and who you are, the bright light that you are. It was just such an honor and pleasure this evening to have you here and to share such, I think, important information on how people can reframe something that most people see as a negative thing, and to come out of it going, it's the best thing that's happened to me, is like, wow, right? And so thank you for doing that, and for doing it, like you said, for us to know about it, because most people do it behind closed doors. So thank you for that, because that is a gift for all of us. So thank you. And if any, I don't know if anyone has any last questions. um, I think wonderful messages here. This is from Joanna Grace. Wonderful messages here, Tammy. Thanks, Lee and Lisa, and those who ask questions. Great evening and uplifting perspective.
Thank you.
Which is,
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful, and your show is just wonderful. Even the music coming in and the intention, I've loved every part of it. And thanks to everybody for asking questions and participating. It's been awesome.
it really has just the love. Thank you for the love in the room and the support this evening. And with that being said, we'll do our closing intention. So, and I think Jill just said, fabulous. Thanks for the inspiration. The inspiration in your strong, remarkable spirit, Tammy. That's from Jill. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Jill.
All right. If we can all shut our eyes for the closing intentions. As we close our time together, with gratitude to all, we pause to offer each other love and kindness. May our understanding of love be expanded by what we have shared as we open ourselves to growth. May we rest in trust and surrender ourselves and our paths to divine grace, asking that this time together be protected, corrected, and held high. May we now see through love's eyes and understand beyond words. May we all be safe, happy, and healthy. May we all rest in full joy and know that there is no distance between friends in time or space. Divine strength and peace surround us until we meet again. Open your eyes. And now for final announcements, over to Lisa. Lisa?
So to recap tonight, Tammy's top 3 learnings from her experience were not to ignore her body, and she obviously encourages everyone else to do the same. In sharing her journey, she experienced an unexpected outpouring of love, and she would have never known about that, and that has changed her forever. And finally, she is strong, much stronger than she ever imagined. So in our highlights email, we will be sharing information on Tammy's 2 upcoming workshops in June that she mentioned earlier. So those will be about leadership communication skills and empowered conversations for amazing relationships. And Tammy is offering $100 off for all of the LeeLa guests. If you are interested in learning more about Lee's breakthrough coaching sessions, her information and contact details will be included. Our next LeeLa event will be held on Wednesday, June 23rd with Erica Ross. Erica is a multi-passionate artist, dancer, DJ, author, educator, and creativity doula. Come join us in a playful evening of dance and creativity in celebration of LeeLa's 1st anniversary and solstice. Together, we will amplify the energy of joy, delight, and curiosity, engaging our inner muse to come out and play. And until next time, everyone, be well, aloha, and good night.